Well, good morning. I'm Carlos, if we haven't met, and thanks for being with us today. We're in a 3-week conversation called We Are the Church, and I just kind of want to catch you up if you missed last week, and then we're going to jump into something today, and then we're going to wrap up today celebrating with a couple of our students in baptism. But last week, I was sort of establishing a foundation. When you hear church, so some of you, you're like lifetime church people. You know church, you've been around church, church is your world, your faith is, and when you hear church, you're thinking your faith, that you're a follower of Jesus. Others of you, you might be here today as a guest, first time, or you've come and gone over the course of your life. And so I wanted to lay a foundation for, so what is the church? It's been around for a few thousand years. At its core, what is it? And before I did that, I said, well, we have to understand kind of what the church does. That you and I, like as humans, we're designed for secure connection. That's what we talked about all last week when we were together. It's at the core of how we live and move and breathe, what we pursue. We want to be connected and known and to know. It's just in our DNA. All of us are going to share this. And the story of Scripture, the Bible's 66 books compiled together. They make up one Bible, and they tell us the story of God and us and who we are and what our purpose is and what's gone wrong and where the solution is. That's a lot right there. But the bottom line is this: if we're designed for secure attachment, why isn't it easier? It's a tricky game, isn't it? Like figuring out how to actually be connected with someone, how to make new friends or fall in love and sustain a close connected relationship. And what the Scripture tells us is that sin, separation between us and God, and which leads to a separation within ourselves and affects all of the relationships in our lives, that because of this persistence of sin, it has fractured this secure connection. It's just hard. I'd maybe go as far as to say nearly impossible. And Jesus steps into history, time and space, and he restores that connection for us. And then he leaves us the church. And the church is a family. Now, some of you who came last week are like, I had to listen to you for 40 minutes. And you just summarized it in 2 minutes. And I apologize, okay? But it was really good to have you here last week. I was glad that you were here. And so the church is a family. Today we're going to move then, beyond sort of that theological framework of who we are, that we're designed for connection, and the church is what God gives us to connect in, and kind of say, but why isn't it easier then? So I'm going to be thinking specifically about faith. But you might just think in life in general that there are just ways to connect that are hard. And I think I'm going to call it fear. There's fear that operates in the human existence that makes connecting, makes being known, makes intimacy difficult. And so the gap between knowing that we're designed for connection and actually connecting, or the gap between knowing and acting, is often fear. I was thinking about this in a way that might seem unrelated, how fear can step into something that seems so normal and so doable. I'm a father of 4. My oldest is 26. So when his name's Gabriel, when Gabe was little, he's about 1 year old, and my wife was pregnant with our daughter Anna, I was a youth pastor in Connecticut. And a couple guys got together, and full suspension bikes were coming around. And it was a pretty wild thing for those of us that grew up without them. And they were coming around, and there was a couple guys in the church let's go riding. He said, I've got a couple bikes. I'm testing out this thing called a Cannondale Lefty. Some of you know it's a bike with a single fork for suspension. And he goes, you got to ride it. It's got great travel and suspension on the rear. And so we go out, and we're in this beautiful mountain bike terrain. And the flow's just beautiful. I grew up riding mountain bikes, so I feel like I'm coming into my element again, right? We're just flying through things, and all of a sudden we come up on a big drop, okay? This is probably about this high. But I haven't ridden in a while, and the 3 or 4 guys in front of me just bang, 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 bang. They all go over it. They don't even slow down. They have enough suspension to essentially absorb it all. And then I'm last in line, and I come up, and as I'm about to just drop right over it, something I would have done growing up, I hit all the brakes and I freeze. And do you know what I see? I see my little 1-year-old boy airbrushed on a china plate. Some of you know what that is. Like a plate, a dinner plate with an airbrush painting of this little baby boy. And then I see sad mom, husband dies, mountain biking with friends, leaves her to raise 2 children, all on her. My mind starts doing all of this. Up to this point, I would say I was not that much of an afraid person. Angels Landing in Zion, I've been up there. There used to be chains. I hung off those chains. It seemed like a fun idea. Now I'm afraid to go over this little drop. And I sit there, and my brain there's this gap going on. And I'm like, this is not that dangerous. Oh, but you could die. So I pick up my bike. Everyone's gone, by the way. I pick up my bike. I carry it down Like down, I just mean I had to just walk. It wasn't even hard to carry the bike over it. I get back on it, and now I'm so afraid. I'm so afraid of dying on a little mountain bike trip that I ride so tentative, I crash multiple times. On the way back, I get back, my hands are cut up, my shirt's ripped on the shoulder. They're like, dude, you must have been tearing it up out there. I'm like, yeah, bro. The flow was the flow was gnarly, right? So I was thinking about this, and I was going, this is kind of what happens to us. Now that was fear for like future physical life safety, but something takes place within us. And so I want to have you turn to your neighbor real quick. Turn to someone near you and just finish this sentence. A time I was genuinely afraid was. Take a moment. We'll be back in a minute, okay? All right, take 10 seconds. All right, walk this road for me real quick, right? So I think about how something like an acute moment of fear or just the low-grade human experience that I think all of us probably carry in one way or another. I start to realize as I'm preparing for today, I go, there's a part of me that I'd say is like genuinely afraid. Not so much of like mortality, I say that now, but I think I'm a verbal processor, right? So I use words to create a lot of meaning. I form ideas as I communicate. And I go, oh, you know what? I regularly carry this fear that I'm going to say the wrong thing at the wrong time, in the wrong way. I'm not going to say to the wrong person, maybe to the right person, to someone I care about deeply. And then once that's said, you can't just go, oops, I'm a verbal processor. Sorry, don't hold that against me. Like you have to. So I carry that with me. Or our church, Eastwind Community Church. I've been here just over 6 years. It's been an exciting journey. I think our church is growing. And in the midst of that, as a pastor, I carry this kind of fear that somewhere along the way, as a church community, we're going to go sideways. And I think a lot of you could say, I've been there. I've been in that church community that went sideways, and I carry a lot of pain from that. And I go, I think we're a very healthy church. And I go, but what if I mess it up? What if I start, my ego or some, and so I carry this fear around that something good could suddenly turn, all because of my limitations. You think about it, like my limitations are always the same. It's God who does the work. It doesn't matter. My fear is still the same. Or you should probably know, like whenever you come to a Sunday service and I preach, I'd never start like this. I never go like, what do you all need to hear? And then I go alone and I think about poor you and how I can help you follow God and come up with a message that will inspire you to be more like Jesus. I'm just living in this. And I'm like, okay, this is what God's doing. We want to be with Jesus. We want to be like Jesus. We want to do as Jesus is doing. So then what you get when we come together is just like part of my journey of faith as well. And then I go, boy, do I stand up here like week after week and we talk about forgiveness, which is a hard thing to really wrestle through. We talk about connecting and being vulnerable. We talk about taking risks. And then I go, do I ask you to do things that I'm personally on the fence about doing myself? So you can see those would be some of my like fears that would come to play. And as I've been thinking through this, though, I go, it's not because I don't have faith. I think I trust God. So it's not the absence of faith. It's that my faith is put in the wrong thing. Because what happens when we're afraid, I just want to riff on on fear a little bit real quick. What happens when we're afraid is I think our vision narrows down a little bit, and we stop seeing like the possibility of what can be done or what God can do. We stop seeing that possibility, and we just start cataloging all of the things that could go wrong. And maybe on an extreme sense, we catastrophize. Like this could all go wrong. But even on a small scale, we're still keeping a record of, but what abouts and what ifs. And then I was kind of looking at, okay, so what are we afraid of? And it's well researched. We fill out polls and surveys, and our purchase patterns, all sorts of things point to that. But there's some categories that I go, these are pretty deeply human categories of fear. Failure at work, failure in relationships, fear of rejection, fear of somebody knowing you and then saying, you're not worth it. Fear of commitment, fear of being left behind as others move forward, fear that you're going to be stuck where you are. It's just where you are, and it's never going to change. But I think it shows up in ways that don't look like fear. Like, I hang out with some of you, and we talk, and I don't think we ever talk about our fears. So it shows up in other ways. And it can show up. Do you know fear can manifest itself in your life as procrastination? Not because you have a hard time getting things done or because you're lazy, but because if you procrastinate, then you get to avoid taking that step that might make your fears come true. But fear can also show up as like white knuckle, like perfectionism. I'm going to take so much control of my world that I'm going to make sure that the things I'm afraid of don't happen. I'm going to deliver. Like I'm going to work it and work it and work it. And in the process, I'm probably going to keep people at arm's length. I'm going to stay busy, and I'll never sit still long enough to think about what I'm actually wrestling with as a person. And the problem then is I think with fear is not, that it shows up. I mean, full disclosure, it's a human reality. If you're in this room today and you're like, no fear, you probably grew up in the 90s and had a sticker on the back of your pickup truck. But yeah, you do. We do. Maybe it's not like a debilitating thing, and maybe you don't identify it as a fear, but the way you live your life would tell you what it is. And there's usually two moves that we make. Right, so procrastinate or perfection, but there's two directions that we go. We go forward. We just charge through it. We're like, I'm going to punch fear in the throat, and it's not going to stop me. I'm going to seize the day. I was thinking last service, I told a story about my wife. It was a fascinating moment because she was sitting right there, and I didn't ask her permission to say it, but sometimes I just say stuff. And then when I was done, I said, how accurate was that story on a scale from 1 to 10? And she gave me a 6 out of 10. So we're fighting right now. But when she was in high school, she lived in Connecticut in a remote area, and she would drive from where she worked home. And apparently there had been some carjackings or something. So she was kind of like, there was a little fear that if I stop at this stop sign, like, I'm vulnerable right there. I'm all alone out here. So my wife, she goes forward when she has fears. Now, she's had faith since she was in junior high, so her faith was part of this. She's like, I'm not going to just live in this fear. I'm going to trust God. But here's how she did it. She would pull up to the stop sign. Instead of like rolling the windows up and doors locked, she would roll the windows down, unlock the doors, play music. Like, hey, carjackers, I'm over here. So that's my wife's approach to things. So it's to go forward. But some of us, we go the other direction. We go backward. We say, oh, no, I'm going to retreat from that thing in front of me. I'm never going to drive that route. I'm going to retreat. I want to say, though, that if that's how we do it, there's a third option. And we're going to see that option in the scripture today. We're going to be in Acts chapter 2, and what we see is going to show up on a specific morning, in a specific room. All this is a moment in history, in a specific city, and it changes everything that comes after it. It's a room full of people who, for every reason you could imagine, are terrified. They're viscerally afraid. And then what happens that day changes them. They're different. And so it's not because they get a strategy to work through their fears or because they pull back far enough that their fears aren't an option. We're going to be in the book of Acts chapter 2. Acts is in the New Testament, and it happens after the 4 Gospels, the accounts of the life of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Acts tells us this, it's like the story of the start of the church. So you're at a church today, Sunday morning. It's like we have a 2,000-year history, and we come from somewhere. This is the origin story. I want to give a little back account to what happens before this, though, for those of you who may not know. Jesus had been betrayed, arrested, crucified, denied by his followers, and buried. That happens not long before the moment we're going to read. And then resurrected. The foundational event of Christian teaching is the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. Something changed, that all of those terrified followers became somebody different. And so that's all what takes place before this. And after he's resurrected, he appears to hundreds over 40 days. And he demonstrates his resurrection. He shows up to his family members and people who doubted him. James, he has a half-brother named James. He shows up to James and he demonstrates that he is God. And James becomes a follower of his half-brother, ends up leading the first church in Jerusalem, ends up actually dying for his conviction and belief. So he appears to hundreds of people, and then he ascends, just like what it sounds like. I don't know exactly what it means, but Jesus was with them, and then he was no longer with them. He went to be with the Father. He leaves, and he leaves behind a small. Now, this is interesting. You might be like, these people were like hyper charged for faith. No, they're not. They don't know what's unfolding. He leaves behind a small, frightened group of people. We know they're frightened because we're told that they're afraid and they've locked themselves. They're basically hiding behind a locked door. So there's a little context for us there, right? And before Jesus left, he gives them this enormous world-changing mission. He says, friends, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go into all the world and I want you to make disciples, followers of me. People who are with me and who are like me and who do as I would do in their jobs and in their relationships. I want you to go into all the world. I want you to do that. And I want you to teach them to obey everything I've commanded. I want you to baptize them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And I promise you, I'm with you always. And then he's gone. And now they're holding that. That's a pretty big ask. They're holding that behind a locked door. These are fishermen, tax collectors, political terrorists. These are men and women. They're not a big group. And they've been handed this like world scale mission. Now, if I'm in that room, I'm terrified. I'm also deeply aware of my resume. Like, I'm a nobody. These are not the people who would move and shake the world as far as the world would be considered. You think about like Peter, the fisherman, right? Peter's like big claim to fame leading into this is his two great moments. When Jesus is arrested, he tries to attack one of the soldiers, cutting off his ear. And Jesus actually chides him and says, Peter, put your sword away, and he heals the guy. That's like, talk about a slap on the hand, right? And then Peter denies he knows Jesus 3 times. Like at the worst possible moment when Jesus looks across the courtyard as he's being beaten and makes eye contact with Peter. And Jesus says, go change the world. That's the context of what happens here. Acts chapter 2, verse 1. When the day of Pentecost came, they were all together in one place. And suddenly a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven. It filled the whole house where they were sitting. So there's something cosmic happening here. This is language trying to describe a spiritual moment, something that doesn't really have a category that exists. So there's a sound like violent wind coming from heaven, and the whole house is filled with it. And then they saw what seemed to be tongues of fire, and it separated and came to rest on each of them. There's this moment happening. All of them were filled with the Holy Spirit, which was the promise of Jesus. He said, it's good that I go because God the Spirit is going to come and dwell with you and lead you in all things. And they began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit enabled them. In this context, the tongues they speak in end up being languages people understand. They speak one language, and all of a sudden they're talking, and people who speak a different language. Because there's a festival going on where people have come from all around, and there's multiple languages all out on the streets happening right now. So as they begin to speak, this becomes important. As something lands in the room that's not predictable or controllable, change happens. Now remember, they're afraid, and then they're not. Peter steps outside. He actually goes from the locked door out to where everybody can see him, probably on a balcony because he's able to speak to crowds of thousands. This is Peter who, remember, like weeks earlier, denied he knew Jesus to a servant girl. And he starts speaking to the crowds of thousands. This is what the text tells us. And Peter stood up with the 11. He raised his voice. He addressed the crowd and he said, fellow Jews and all of you who live in Jerusalem, let me explain this to you. Listen carefully to what I say. So he goes from denying Jesus 3 times which then after Jesus was resurrected, Peter went back to fishing. So up to this point still, he's not crushing it, right? He's now standing in front of thousands. And he tells them, he said, this same Jesus you crucified is the Savior who can restore you to what you're intended for. And it's not, I don't think Peter's fear just evaporates in some pseudo-spiritual, like he was afraid and now he has faith and he no longer has fear. I don't know what that looks like, to be honest with you. Now you have faith and you no longer have fear. But watch what Peter does. For weeks, he's been staring at his own inadequacy. Hiding out in this room, and all of a sudden he's full of courage. And I don't think courage is that he's muscled his way to the absence of fear. I think he's looking at something different. He's choosing what to look at. He's decided to look at the hand of God provided through Jesus Christ to say, this is going to, from this day forward, this is where I'm going to turn my eyes. This is where I'm going to focus. This is where I'm going to fix my attention. I'm not going to look around. I'm going to look here. And it gives him this immediate boldness where when he stops staring at it, Peter was objectively a failure in the story, by the way, up to this point. He's not like the hero. His inadequacy has led him down these shameful decisions. He's betrayed his close friend, and the Spirit shows up and he stops looking at those things. And he preaches. He quotes Joel, an Old Testament prophet. He names Jesus directly, publicly. Jesus, 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 Jesus. He says that out loud over the streets where the very soldiers who arrested Jesus and put him to death can listen. It's like he's saying, come get me. And people respond. We're told that 3,000 people become followers of Jesus that day. And if you've ever wondered, so where did Christianity, the church begin? This is its beginning. 3,000 people become followers of Jesus in a single morning. And let's jump forward a little bit and then see what happens with these followers of Jesus. And every day they continue to meet together in the temple courts. So they're meeting publicly now. They're meeting about Jesus. They're gathering together and they're saying, we believe he was risen from the dead. And it says they break bread in their homes and they ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. It's an interesting account of how our fear can play out when it comes to our design for connection and purpose. When it comes to being part of, my specific focus this morning is being part of the church. I think you can apply this to other places, right? But what grew out of Pentecost that day wasn't a building or a program. It didn't have a name or a parking lot. It wasn't a service on a Sunday or a Saturday night. It was a community of people who had been changed by an encounter with someone larger than their fear. And then they couldn't stop gathering and celebrating it and talking about it and pouring themselves into it. They met daily, right? This is the description of, this is what the church was. Now you might go, then why don't we do that? I'm like, well, you have jobs in school. But this is the heartbeat of what we want to do, though. We want to be in community. We want to know one another. We want to serve our city together. We want to live in such a way that the existence of Eastwind is good for the community around us. They've got these glad and sincere hearts. And what I love, that word sincere, it just means they didn't have pretense. They didn't perform for each other. Fear definitely makes us performers. So here's what I want to highlight out of this story, that no point in what we just read does it say, and God showed up and took all the fear away. There was no longer, they were all just like these divinely illuminated human beings who were now at this place of perfect spiritual enlightenment where nothing could stand in the way of their purpose. The risk was all still there. They just took a step, in that step they took didn't make their lives easier. Most of them were murdered for their faith not long after this, within years to decades. I mean, Peter still could have been arrested. The early church went on to face brutal persecution. There was a guy named Saul who eventually becomes the Paul from the Bible who writes some of the New Testament scriptures. There's a guy named Saul who oversaw the public death of one of the first Christians, a man named Stephen. So you see things turn pretty rough. And so joining the community was not like the safe choice. Hey, I'm looking at the direction my life is going. Whew, so glad I got the church now. That's not really how it worked out. But these were people, I want to pull from the prophet Isaiah in the Second Temple era, which is the time in history when Jesus walked with us. The Second Temple era, the prophet Isaiah from the Old Testament was like near and dear to the hearts of the people living under Rome's rule. And there's some, Isaiah 41:10, look at how they live out the promise of Isaiah. He says, so do not fear, for I am with you. And what I love is God doesn't say, hey, there's no longer fear. Or what? Come on. Why are you afraid? What's wrong with you? He says, do not. Fear's there at the table. Just don't pay attention to it. Don't make it. I am with you. Don't be dismayed, for I am your God. Notice all the antidotes are what you pay attention to. I will strengthen you and I'll help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. I think this is God saying, when you're afraid, and you will be afraid about big things and little things, small steps and huge decisions, heartbreak and moments of victory, when you're afraid, I am already here. Who you pay attention to is going to determine everything. Later on, the followers of Jesus, the Apostle John writes this letter to the church, and look how he talks about fear. He says, there's no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. He says, because fear has to do with punishment. It has to do with what it's going to cost. And the one who fears is not made perfect in love. And I've wrestled with this text a lot because I still have fears. I'm not talking like fears of the dark. I have fears about if I believe the right things and fears about if I teach the right things. And it's really interesting, right? But fear and love cannot fully occupy the same space. And not because love is powerful in some abstract, super spiritual sense. That almost can be frustrating when you feel afraid. You feel like, I don't know if I want to share myself with this person or with this community, or I don't know. This happens all the time. Some of you will say, I want to serve in student ministry, but I just don't think I have what it takes. Once they find out how little I know about God, how little I know about the Bible, once they find out that I'm not perfect, and you hear that sentence as it rolls out, and you think like, no, all that needs to be pushed away. Those are things that can be trained and mediated, and you can grow. But don't let fear stop you. Because what love does, instead of just overwhelming fear, is I believe that love reorients your attention. It takes what you pay attention to, and it takes it off that which causes you fear and on that which gives you hope, which is Jesus Christ. And the message of life is that we become like what we pay attention to. I'm always interested for someone to argue that point with me because I don't think there's an argument. That's the way our brains are wired. Become like what we pay attention to. And paying attention to the perfect love of God helps you become somebody who orients your life away from the fears that are very natural and very normal and very human and very realistic and very understandable. When you're truly convinced that you are loved, then you can stop scanning the room for threats and you can feel safe. Well, that's what happens in Acts chapter 2. That's what happens to Peter. I think that's what happens to anyone who stops keeping God at a distance and says, God, I'm going to take that step. I'm going to take that step of belief. For some of you, that step of belief is like, I'm around it all the time, and I even believe the resurrection, but I'm on this fence. I don't know what to do next, and what to do next is to say yes to Jesus. It's to go, Jesus, forgive me of my sin. I give my life to you. I've shared with you, I did that on my knees. I didn't even know what I was doing. I was 19 years old and 20 years old, got on my knees and was just like, forgive me. And flames didn't come rest on me, and I didn't have magic powers. I still had all sorts of struggles and issues and doubts, but I gave my life to Jesus. I began to follow. And I think now, almost 30 years later, what I realize is that the courage that changes things doesn't come from muscling yourself out of fear. It comes from looking at something bigger than the thing you're afraid of. And that's always the invitation of faith in Jesus Christ. He is bigger than what you're afraid of. Yeah, even if the thing you're afraid of is real, like it has a timestamp on it. It's a doctor visit. It's a heartbreak. It's being stuck in a place in life you can't get out of. It's being alone and wondering if you'll ever have anybody. Like, He's bigger than all those things. So I guess what I want to kind of wrap up today with is that the step, I don't know what step you need to take. My whole bent on this is like a step towards like spiritual maturity, but you're in your life and you've got your own areas where you have to work through things. Maybe the step is something that feels as small as like a conversation that needs to happen. And you just haven't been able to have it. You've avoided it, but it needs to happen. Or a relationship that you've kept at a safe distance because getting closer is scary. Like that's where that fear of rejection, the kind that can like really take you out at the knees, comes in. And so you keep your relationships at a distance. And for a lot of us, and I think this about church, like when you think about taking a step further, this room has so many people who would say, I've done that before, and it cost me so much. Because the people I did it with were not who I thought they were. The church wasn't who I thought it was. That's true in churches. That's true with people. That's us, right? You know, maybe for some of you, it's this is your community, and you are like all in on the observer role. And I'm so glad you're here. But the step is to go. There is no like Carlos and the staff in Eastwind. It's just the church, and it's us. Carlos does his thing. The staff do their thing. We're all invited into this together. And I think the challenge in all this is fear always says, like, just wait till you're ready or get a little more information. Just like get some data, figure out what the right decision to make is, or wait until the risk goes down. And a lot of us start to realize risk never mitigates because we're human. And information isn't really what we need. It can help make informed decisions, but I don't think that's what holds most of us back. And then being ready, then it comes down to just being ready then. It's like, I don't know that I was ready to become a follower of Jesus. I wasn't ready to become a dad. I wasn't ready to become a pastor. I just took steps. So I want to encourage you with this. Your first step doesn't require confidence. It just requires direction. Where are you paying attention? Step towards that. If it's your fears, consider that you're paying attention to the wrong thing. The invitation is to pay attention to Jesus, to be with him, to be like him, to do as he would do. I'm gonna end in a way that might seem confusing. No, I'm gonna end in a way that is confusing. My wife told me that after the last service. So I'm gonna overview for you real quick who we are as a church. Because my heartbeat would be, I'm all in on this. My heart would be that whether you're a guest today, you take time in your journey, or you're visiting from out of town, you think about this in your own community that you go back to. But that for a lot of us, we'd say, so who is the family at Eastwind? Across the street's Eagle Christian Church. They have their family over there. We're all part of one big family. Down at Dallas Harris School is Hill City Southeast. There's churches all around us. We're all on the same movement here. But you're sitting in this room today. So I kind of want to overview some things, some things I'd like you to understand as you think about taking your steps. Like the girls who are getting baptized today. It's not about Eastwind, but it's in this community that they've taken their steps. So we have a mission, we have what we call pillars, and we have a vision. And this is, some of you are like, this is going to sound so corporate. It kind of is, but it's not a good version of it. So it's a bad version of a corporate sales pitch, okay? Our mission is simply this. We exist to inspire each other to follow Jesus and deepen our faith and relationship with him, to love our neighbors and reach the next generation. It's our way of saying the challenge of Jesus. Go into the world and make disciples. This is how we say it. Every church has a little different take on how they say it. Jesus is our bottom line. We exist to inspire. And the operative word there is each other. It's not Carlos exists to inspire whoever comes, or the band exists to inspire, or the kids teacher exists to inspire. It's we exist to inspire each other. All of us, one body, have a part in this conversation. We're not meant to watch it or do it alone. We're meant to join in together. I love this because our history goes back to that text we read out of the book of Acts. They were not a collection of spiritually supercharged people. They were ordinary people who had encountered Jesus Christ, and then they refused to live that experience in isolation. They started eating together, serving together, helping the poor together, learning together. They just brought their lives together. And we come together in what we call our pillars. In the lobby, if you ever look on the wall, you'll see these things. This is kind of where we pour our energy. These aren't our programs or like our strategy. The first church, what was their strategy? Just love Jesus and love each other, and you're probably going to die. It's not a great pitch. These are just where we pour our energy. Sundays, you're sitting in that right now. This could be a Saturday, but right now, Sundays is when we do this. Our Sunday service together in community. Our life groups, these are communities of adults who come together to care, to connect, to grow. I mean, the reality is some life groups are great, others are hard, like it's challenging. We're people. We see the backstory. You do the hard work. If you're having a challenging time connecting with people, you don't withdraw or smash your way through it. You stay in. You get curious about them. You become more intimate and share more of yourself. You risk it. Serving in the life of the church. I mean, I always think about what happens throughout a week here and how many volunteer hours come into. It's incredible. Kids and youth, the next generation. It's in our mission to love our neighbor and reach the next generation. And then Uplift. That's how we talk about like outreach to our local nonprofits, to our civic organizations, out to Wilder School District, all the way to Gatani, Kenya. We have different ways that we go out and serve. And these to me are just practical places where we all take that step. And that's the thing I'm actually getting at here. You can apply this to your business or a relationship, but I'm specifically saying for many of you, there's a step to take right here in the life of your church. And these are where the steps take place. Every single one of these things existed, not because someone sat down and said, let's make this, because they were already happening and lives were being changed. If you were to say, when you look at this, is there like a hill that you would die on? Personally, like as the lead pastor here, Carlos, I'd go, yeah, kids and youth. Like you look at our budget, it is so weighted towards kids and youth. You look at our staff, most of our staff serve our families, our kids and youth. Timberline, East, LeBois, Sage, it's kids and youth. That would be the hill to die on. Fortunately, I don't have to die on any hills. I like living, but that would be the hill to die on. And then we have a vision as a church, a way that we operate that's unique to us. It was in the heartbeat of this church when it was founded, and it's different than other churches. We're all about the same thing, but our vision is that we want to be a church where you can belong before you believe. Another way we say that is a church that unchurched people know they're part of or love being part of. I mean, I didn't grow up in the church. First time I showed up, they assumed I knew everything about the Bible, everything about Jesus. I knew nothing. First time I heard the name of Jesus was when I was 13. So I didn't have any backstory. So we want to take time and be thoughtful. We want to link arms and serve our city together. We don't want to say, like, did you pass the test? Are you in? But that we can just journey on this together. Now, this is interesting. Something in our practical moment right here is, a lot of you know, a lot of you are part of this. Eastwind is several years into an expansion project. We've done the fundraising part of that, and as a community, you were incredible, and we raised $4 million, which I think blew all of our minds, and thank you for your faithfulness in that. And then we have an architect, and we're working with the architect, and we went before planning and zoning a few months ago, and we received permission to expand the space that we have here. And then the way the city works, neighbors are allowed to appeal that, and we're under an appeal right now that will happen June 30th. We'll go before City Council for the appeal of our permitting process. Now, I live in Surprise Valley, so if you live in this part of town, you may have received like a letter on your door or had a conversation with someone, and the letter says, stop Eastwind. It's not about stopping the church, it's about the expansion. And I bring this up because some of you who got that letter, or there's a website called Stop Eastwind. And I bring this up because some have said, what do we do? And I go, well, first of all, this is okay. We live in a wonderful country and a wonderful community and wonderful neighborhoods where this is the civic process. It's okay. And I'd like to think I, as a neighbor, if I was concerned about something, would have avenues and places to advocate. And so the first thing we do is realize that nothing changes. Our mission is still our mission. It has nothing to do with building a bigger building. Inspire each other to follow Jesus and deepen our faith and relationship with him. To love our neighbor. And we have some neighbors who feel concerned that the expansion is not going to be very loving for them. We have to be really slow to see that as like a fight. The city will determine the process and all that. But if you receive that letter, and even some of you who Eastwind is your home, you probably have signed off on that letter because you like this. You have some concerns about the growth. And this isn't a sales pitch to get us all rallied on one side. It's to say, when I think about our mission, I think about our pillars, I think about our vision, they all make sense in how we're supposed to operate. We don't know what the future will be, but it has no bearing on how we live our lives. We pay attention to Jesus. We're not driven by fear. We're not at war with people. We're just trying to be faithful to who we are right here. So there's no call to like everybody email the mayor and let's get a counter thing going here. Would you pray though? Would you pray for that the process goes well and that we handle ourselves well in the process? And if you have any questions, please come chat with me about it. A lot of you, some of you, 80% of our church lives within about 5 miles from here, but some of you don't. And you're like, what letter, what thing? It's the process. You don't have to jump in or wonder what you're missing. If you have any questions though, you can come talk to me about it, okay? That was just an aside that I felt like I should share because I know some of you have been experiencing questions or concerns or even appreciated that voice is out there. And isn't that awesome that as a church, we can gather together and there can be people in here who are like, I don't like the expansion. And there can be others in here who are like, I sold my house to help pay for the expansion. And no one did that, but if you want to, come talk to me. And then we can come together and we can be a family. That's what Jesus does. And that's our call. So as we wrap up today, I want to return back to then how fear keeps us from taking those steps, whether it's into church community, whether it's into things in our lives. And is there a next step in your life you've been waiting to feel ready for? I want to give you a moment to talk to God about that fear or the fear that's holding you back. And then we're going to come up and we're going to celebrate baptisms.